Okay, people, the time has officially come. I'm going to rank every single NFL head coach for the 2020 NFL season. Obviously, the 2020 NFL season has already gotten underway, but we're only about 2 weeks in, so I figured it's still a good time for me to rank these head coaches. I'm going to rank these coaches in tiers. I have 5 different tiers for you guys. Tier number 1 is the elite head coaches. Up next is tier number 2. Up next is tier number 3. Tier number 4 is below average, awful head coaches. So those are the bottom level head coaches. And then the last tier is the unknown tier. Those are coaches that I'm just not quite sure about right now. You know, they're rookie head coaches. There's actually a head coach that coached last year that I'm not quite sure about. That's in his second season. We'll talk about him down the road. But right now, let's get right into it, man. In tier number 1, at the 1 spot, I have Bill Belichick. Up next is Andy Reid. Up next is Mike Tomlin at number 3, John Harbaugh at number 4, Sean Payton at number 5, and Doug Peterson at number 6. Those are your elite head coaches. Let's start off with Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick, I mean, I can't praise this guy enough. 6 Super Bowl rings, 9 Super Bowl appearances. In the last 19 years, he's yet to have a losing season. We've seen this guy win games without Tom Brady. We've seen him win games with Matt Castle. We've seen him win games with Jacoby Brissett. We've seen him win games with Jimmy Garoppolo. Quarterbacks that are average to below average. Jimmy Garoppolo is an average quarterback. Jacoby Brissett and Matt Castle are both backups and below average quarterbacks. Bill Belichick is arguably the best defensive mind in the entire NFL. He has a very good understanding of what offenses are trying to do. He's a very good strategist. He's very great on script. He makes great adjustments, drive to drive, play by play, and year to year, man. And Bill Belichick does a great job of finding players that fit a specific role and fitting them into his team and getting the most out of those players. He does a great job of building up his rosters. And listen, I'll give Bill Belichick some brownie points as well, just because in 1994, he had a winning record with the Cleveland Browns. That's hard to do because that franchise has been a very dysfunctional franchise. Bill Belichick at the number 1 spot in tier number 1. Andy Reid up next. Andy Reid is probably the most creative offensive mind in the entire NFL. This guy made Alex Smith look like an MVP candidate. This guy took Donovan McNabb to a Super Bowl. And I'm not trying to knock Donovan McNabb, but I don't think Donovan McNabb is a Hall of Famer. And I think that Donovan McNabb benefited from Andy Reid more so than Andy Reid benefited from Donovan McNabb. Andy Reid elevated McNabb more than McNabb elevated Andy Reid, in my opinion. And last year, we saw MVP-level quarterback in Patrick Mahomes go down for a couple games due to injuries. And what happens? Matt Moore comes right in and is able to pick up Andy Reid's system very quickly, and he beat a playoff team. He beat the Minnesota Vikings, a team that went to the playoffs last year. He was able to, play very well in relief versus the Broncos. He took the Green Bay Packers down to the wire. Andy Reid is a great offensive guru. He's been to 2 Super Bowls. He's won 1 Super Bowl. He just showed you this past year that if you give him an MVP-level quarterback, a truly MVP-level quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, he can win you a Super Bowl. Andy Reid is at the 2 spot for me. Mike Tomlin at number 3. This guy's been to 2 Super Bowls. He's won a Super Bowl. He's never had a losing season in 14 years. The players respect him. He's a great motivator. And last year, going 8-8 with Doug Hodges and Mason Rudolph being the quarterback for 85% of the season, that's an amazing achievement. You could have made an argument that last year, Mike Tomlin actually deserved to be NFL head coach of the year because he did an excellent job of coaching up those guys. He had a winning record with those guys. Keep in mind, Big Ben Roethlisberger started off 0-2. He had a winning record with those quarterbacks. This guy is accomplished, and he's not getting enough credit in Pittsburgh. John Harbaugh at the 4th spot for me. 13 years into the NFL, only had 1 losing season. He's won Coach of the Year in the past. He's a great adjuster, year to year. Every single year, it seems like the Ravens are a different team. 1 minute, they're a team bombing the ball down the field with Joe Flacco. 1 minute, they're a ball control, defensive-oriented team. And now he's embracing the young legs and dynamic ability that Lamar Jackson presents to the table. Gotta love Jim Harbaugh. He's won a Super Bowl in the past. Like I said, he's at number 4 for me. Sean Payton. The fact that Sean Payton, 14 years into his career, has a winning percentage of 63% for his career, that shows this guy is legit because he is coaching in a division for most of his career with Cam Newton, who now is with the Patriots, but for a while, Cam Newton was with the Panthers for a long time, okay? He mostly throughout his career has coached in a division with Cam Newton and Matt Ryan, 2 MVP level quarterbacks that both led their teams to Super Bowls. Sean Payton, he does a great job of maximizing a player's strength and hiding their weaknesses. I am very convinced that Drew Brees has not been the greatest quarterback the last 2 seasons, and Sean Payton continues to disguise things and get Drew Brees in the best position to succeed. I still think Drew Brees is very good, but I do think that Drew Brees' arm has deteriorated a little bit. I don't think that he's quite the same athlete that he once was. He can't throw the ball down the field, and it does not matter. Not to mention last year, Teddy Bridgewater had to replace Drew Brees due to Drew Brees' injury, and the team did not fall off a cliff. Sean Payton, he's great. Doug Peterson, I already talked about him earlier. Doug Peterson is the most underrated great head coach in the NFL. 3 winning seasons the last 3 years. He's beaten Bill Belichick in the Super Bowl. He won that game with Nick Foles, who, outside of Philadelphia, during his time with the Rams, the Chiefs, the Jaguars, he has not been very good, and he couldn't even be out Mitchell Trubisky this past training camp in Chicago. Doug Peterson, he's very creative, he's very aggressive, he understands his personnel, and the fact that he got the Eagles to the playoffs last year due to all those injuries is definitely a testament to his great coaching ability. He is the last head coach in the elite tier. Now, tier number 2, there's a lot of head coaches in this tier, okay? And one of those head coaches is Pete Carroll. As of right now, I have Pete Carroll in the 7th spot. I have Sean McVay in the 8th spot. I have Ron Rivera in the 9th spot. He's the 9th best head coach. Kyle Shanahan at number 10. Sean McDermott at number 11. John Gruden at number 12. Mike Vrabel at number 14. Mike Vrabel at number 13, pardon me. Bruce Arians at number 15. At number 14, Bruce Arians at number 14, and Frank Wright at number 15. So those are your tier 2 coaches. Coaches that are very good, but not quite elite. I understand that Pete Carroll has been to 2 Super Bowls. He's an excellent teacher. He's a friendly head coach. But the way Pete Carroll, the last 3 seasons, has refused to adjust his offensive system, and the way that he has underutilized the MVP-level quarterback in Russell Wilson is mind-boggling to me. Since 2017, the Seahawks have the fewest first quarter passing attempts in the entire NFL. That shows you that this guy is treating Russell Wilson like he's Blake Bortles. So Pete Carroll, he's great, but over the past couple of years, I do not think that he's evolved enough as a head coach. Got to put him in the 7th spot, not quite elite anymore. Sean McVay, there's a lot to like about Sean McVay. He's very creative. He's a player's head coach. He's been to a Super Bowl, but the reason why I can't put Sean McVay in that elite category is because all the coaches in the elite category have won Super Bowls, and Sean McVay, his specialty is offense, and in the Super Bowl versus Bill Belichick, his offense failed that Rams team. And his worst season in the NFL is the 9-7 season last year. So, look, I'm going to say this about Sean McVay. I think Sean McVay has gotten too much credit for the Rams' success. He's gotten a little bit too much blame. Sean McVay is a top 10 head coach, but not quite elite yet. At the number 9 spot, I have Ron Rivera. He's a 2-time coach of the year. He's a great defensive mind. He's a great motivator. He's a very serious head coach, but he also is a head coach that relates very well to his players. He's a player's head coach. He's been to a Super Bowl, and I give him some brownie points for that just because that he was coaching in a division with Drew Brees and Matt Ryan for his entire career until he got to Washington. And the fact that he got Cam Newton and that team to a Super Bowl was very special. Ron Rivera can't be in the elite conversation just because he's never had back-to-back winning seasons. There is a lack of creativity to his coaching game, but Ron Rivera is a great head coach. He was able to win games with Kyle Allen last year, and I believe he's a top 10 head coach. Kyle Shanahan, very creative. He's been to a Super Bowl. He's super organized, but when you have a losing record and you get out-coached in the Super Bowl, I can only give you so much credit. So I just want to see Kyle Shanahan continue to build upon what he's already done in the NFL. But he's at the number 10 spot for me, the 10th best head coach in the NFL. Sean McDermott. This guy might be the most underrated head coach in the entire NFL. In 2017, he got the Bills to the playoffs with not a whole lot of weapons on offense. Tyrod Taylor was his quarterback. I'm not a big Tyrod Taylor fan. And keep in mind, Buffalo is not a super duper big time market. It's a small market. You know, there's not a whole lot of free agents that come to Buffalo, and he's in a division with Bill Belichick. So it's hard to win in Buffalo. But this guy's a good head coach. He's not the most creative head coach in the world, but to me, he's good for a tier 2 coach and being at that number 11 spot. John Gruden, this guy's won a Super Bowl in the past. In 2002, he won a Super Bowl. He's a fiery guy. He's a player's head coach. He understands football. I do think that there is some inconsistencies to John Gruden as a head coach, which is reflected by his barely above 500 record for his career. Right now, for his career, he's got a winning percentage of 51%. That shows a lack of consistency, but John Gruden, he's a tier 2 coach. Mike Vrabel, I think Mike Vrabel at times makes some mistakes. He's not great off script. Mike Vrabel is one of the best head coaches as far as, putting together a game plan and, allowing his players to be successful because of that game plan on script. But when Mike Vrabel has to go off script and sometimes make some high leverage decisions, sometimes he struggles. But the one thing I will say about Mike Vrabel, this guy had a winning record with Marcus Mariota in 2018. That's hard to do because I'm not a big Marcus Mariota fan. I think the guy's a bust. I think the guy's a backup quarterback. And the minute Mike Vrabel got just an average quarterback in Ryan Tannehill, that guy goes all the way to the AFC Championship game. So Mike Vrabel, he's a good head coach. Up next, the last two head coaches in the tier 2 category are Bruce Arians and Frank Reich. Bruce Arians, 2-time coach of the year. We know Bruce Arians at times can be a very creative head coach. I do think that players enjoy playing for Bruce Arians. The only problem is Bruce Arians, he does not make adjustments very well at all. There's a stubbornness to his coaching style. Frank Reich of the Indianapolis Colts, he's one of the best offensive minds in the entire NFL. Andrew Luck last year, before he retired, had a career high in completion percentage, a career high in pass rate under Frank Reich's offense. He's been to the playoffs, and last year he won 7 games with not great quarterback play, and his team had to deal with a lot of injuries. So that's the last head coach in tier number 2. In tier number 3, I have Mike Zimmer at the number 16 spot, Matt LaFleur at the number 17 spot, Mike McCarthy at the number 18 spot, Cliff Kingsbury at the number 19 spot, Brian Flores at number 20, Matt Nagy at number 21, Bill O'Brien, catch my breath right there, Bill O'Brien at number 22, Dan Quinn at number 23, and Anthony Lynn at number 24. Those are all of the tier 3 head coaches in 2020. Let's start with Mike Zimmer. Mike Zimmer is more of your old school head coach. He's not super creative. He's very old school. He likes to run the ball, play great defense. And in big games, his teams at times sort of shrink. But I gotta say, the results tell me that Mike Zimmer is a pretty good head coach. He's only had 1 losing season in 5 years, and I can give him some bragging points for that because he's in a division with Aaron Rodgers, the Hall of Fame level quarterback, so it's hard to win your division when you're going against Aaron Rodgers each year. So Mike Zimmer, not the most creative guy, but he wins games. He's a tier 3 head coach right at the top of that tier. Matt LaFleur, I get the fact that Matt LaFleur went 13-3 with the Packers last year. I do think players enjoy playing for Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur is not afraid to, make some changes. He's not afraid to try new things week to week. Matt LaFleur isn't the greatest head coach when it comes to making adjustments, but on script, when things are going well, Matt LaFleur is one of the best head coaches in the entire NFL. So I just want to see Matt LaFleur continue to progress as a play caller. I want to see if he is more of a product of Aaron Rodgers or if he's actually elevating Aaron Rodgers. I do think that he did a great job of calling a great game in that Minnesota game in week number 1, but I'm just kind of waiting to see with Matt LaFleur. Number 18, Mike McCarthy is the 18th best head coach in the NFL in 2020. He's won a Super Bowl, but I do think that Mike McCarthy is not super creative. He's not a great defensive mind. He's an average offensive mind. I'm not saying that Mike McCarthy is a bad offensive minded head coach. He's a decent play caller, but there's just nothing really special about Mike McCarthy. And I do think that Mike McCarthy relied on Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre a little bit too much, but he deserves our respect. Cliff Kingsbury, he's a head coach on the rise, in my opinion. Cliff Kingsbury comes in at number 19. I just want to see Cliff Kingsbury continue to elevate this Cardinals team. I do think that he benefits a little bit from having a generational talent at quarterback in Kyler Murray. I think the Cardinals actually are a playoff team this year, and I think that the Cardinals probably should win about 8 games at the least. So I want to see Cliff Kingsbury get to 8 or 9 wins this year. I understand that he plays in a very tough division, but I'm just kind of still waiting to see with Cliff Kingsbury, even though he's a very creative head coach. Brian Flores has a chance to become an elite head coach one day. I'm just not quite ready to anoint him yet, just because his team only won 5 games last year. But that guy put on a coaching clinic down the stretch last year. The Miami Dolphins, their final 9 games, went 5-4 as a football team. That's very, very good considering the circumstances that Brian Flores was dealt with, as a lot of his star players were traded away at the start of the season. Miami just traded away a bunch of good players, and they just let Brian Flores out to hang and dry. But he made it happen. That team was destroyed by the Ravens in week number 1, and over the final 9 games, they had a winning record last year, and they beat the Patriots, the Colts, and the Eagles. 2 of those 3 teams were playoff teams last year. So Brian Flores, very good up and rising head coach. Matt Nagy, I think Matt Nagy's pretty creative. You know, he's not a stubborn head coach. He's won a division in the past. You know, I'll give him some brownie points for that, just because Mitch Trubisky, I don't think that he's overall that great of a quarterback. However, I don't think Matt Nagy took the necessary steps at head coach that I wanted him to take from this past year. I think Matt Nagy sometimes relies a little bit too much on what got him by in 2018 rather than, you know, progressing as a play caller. So I'm just kind of still waiting to see with Nagy, but I do think he's better than people give him credit for. I just want to see more from him. Bill O'Brien, this guy actually used to be one of the most underrated head coaches in the entire NFL. But this guy has just flat out regressed year in and year out. He has not evolved. He's become way too dependent on Deshaun Watson. He's not very organized. In high leverage moments, this guy makes some of the worst decisions I've ever seen. Bill O'Brien, he's not a very good head coach. The only reason why I put him in tier number 3 is just because he's shown the ability to get to the playoffs with a below average quarterback in Brock Osweiler, and he's still getting to the playoffs with Deshaun Watson. I just want to see him maximize Deshaun Watson and win some more playoff games, but only time will tell. Dan Quinn to me, I don't know. I'm just hit and miss with Dan Quinn. I understand that he got the Falcons to a Super Bowl in 2016. Yes, 2016. He got them to a Super Bowl. He won 11-5 that year, but outside of that 11-5 Super Bowl season, he's been 8-8, 10-6, 7-9, 7-9, and this year, I think the Falcons are about an 8-8 football team. So Dan Quinn at his best can get you to a Super Bowl, but if you take away that best season, he's just an average coach at best. He's not a very good defensive-minded head coach, and that's very disappointing due to the fact that Dan Quinn was a defensive coordinator with the Seahawks a couple years ago. He was a defensive coordinator, and the Atlanta Falcons defense continues to disappoint. That's a bad look for him. Last but not least, the final coach in tier number 3 is Anthony Lynn. I just think Anthony Lynn does nothing special. You know, Anthony Lynn is solid. He's solid in every area that I talked about earlier, but he does nothing at a high level. And I don't think Anthony Lynn's all that creative. You know, the players respect him. Players love playing for him, but he hasn't accomplished a whole lot. You know, he's not very progressive or creative. So he's the number 24 for me. He's the 24th best head coach, and he just misses out on tier number 4, which is the well below average tier. And to kick things off, I got Matt Patricia at number 25. Actually, I'm sorry. I'm going to flip those guys. I mentioned earlier that Patricia is at number 25. I'm going to put Doug Marrone at number 25 and flip Matt Patricia and put him at number 26 just because Doug Marrone in Jacksonville has made an AFC Championship game, but this guy is living off that 1 year of going to the AFC title game. I'm not too excited about him. Matt Patricia, we could talk about the fact that his team has dealt with injuries, but it's funny because Bill Belichick, Doug Peterson, and Mike Tomlin still find ways to win games with below average quarterbacks. We could talk about him not having great rosters, but I see other coaches elevating their rosters and turning water into wine. It just comes down to the fact that Matt Patricia has a 9-23 record for his career. And it comes down to wins and losses, people. And Matt Patricia, there's nothing special about him. He's at number 26. Number 27 is Adam Gase. He's just not a great head coach. He's living off of coaching Peyton Manning. He's not creative. He's not an offensive guru. The Jets have gotten worse and worse every time I watch them play. under Adam Gase. He's not elevating Sam Darnold. The players don't respect him. There's no presence about him. There's nothing special about him. He's the worst head coach in the NFL, in my opinion, probably at the moment, besides the unproven guys. Now, the unproven tier. At the top of that tier, I'm going to put Matt Rule there. Up next is Joe Judge. Up next is Zach Taylor. Up next is Kevin Stefanski. And last but not least, Vic Fangio. I think Matt Rule is going to turn around the Carolina Panthers. Now, I don't know what type of coach Matt Rule is just because he's a rookie, but I feel good about him. I like that hire, but we'll just wait and see, man. Same with Joe Judge. Didn't really like that hire, but I do think that Joe Judge actually has a pretty high ceiling if he hits, but he's one of those guys that has a high ceiling but a very low floor. That's just my opinion, though. Zach Taylor, I do think Zach Taylor should be given the benefit of the doubt. He should be given the benefit of the doubt just because his quarterback play over the past couple years has not been that good. Now that he has Joe Burrow, let's evaluate him. Kevin Stefanski, he's a rookie. That's all I need to say about him. And Vic Fangio, it's funny because last year, Fangio was able to win games despite having bad quarterback play. But I did not like the way that he handled his timeouts in week number 1 of the 2020 NFL season. On Monday Night Football, I don't think Vic Fangio is a very creative offensive mind. He's a very good defensive-minded head coach, but I don't know if he's the type of head coach to elevate, your offense and your quarterback. So I'm just kind of waiting to see with Vic Fangio. I just want to wait and see what he brings to the table in Denver. I had Denver making the playoffs. We'll see if he's up to the task. So there you have it, people. Those are all 32 NFL head coaches ranked at the moment. I have this out for you guys, and I think I did a pretty good job. Be sure to comment if you're watching on YouTube. If I did a good job, if I did a poor job, let me know. Love to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Please also note that the Juice Alert Sports Podcast is not just a YouTube channel. It is available on all podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this content with all your friends. This podcast is my favorite thing in the entire world right now. It is my passion. And I want more people to listen to this podcast. I really want this podcast to grow. Also, a fun fact about me is that I want to go into the sports broadcasting and media world once I graduate from the University of Toledo, a college in Northern Ohio. I am looking to become one of the next great sports broadcasters and analysts out in the world. And I potentially would like to start my own network if this podcast really truly grows. Or if I fall short of that goal, I would love to work for a big-time network like ESPN or Fox Sports 1. I am open to all networks. So if you believe in my dreams and you see or hear my passion through the screen, be sure to tell all your friends about the Juice Alert Sports Podcast. Stay motivated, you guys. Have a God bless day, and I'm out.